So, welcome to Nothing Ventured, Nothing Game. I'm your host with the most, your GM Jared, and today I'm joined by the one and only our Rules Arbiter Steve. How you doing tonight, Steve?
Yo, how's everyone doing tonight?
Awesome. So, basically, what happened was I'm a huge fan of tabletop role-playing games, but the coolest part is I'm a huge fan of international tabletop role-playing games because I like to see. It's kind of like peeking behind the curtain of a culture that you're never going to live in. You know, unless you have the privilege to be like super rich or the ability to like travel to other countries and live there for a certain amount of time, you have this like special privilege. But I find tabletop role-playing games to kind of allow you to peek behind the curtain. Like I know in Japan, currently the most popular tabletop role-playing game is Call of Cthulhu. And it's interesting to see why a game like that would be interesting. So I'm a huge fan of that. So this afternoon, Steve sent me a text message. He said, hey, I know you really love international tabletop games. Look what's coming out. And it was Drakar och.
Yeah,
it's Swedish.
Yeah, so basically this is a Scandinavian tabletop RPG around the time that D&D was becoming a thing.
Yes.
That's it's 40 years old as of like right now, and it's never been in English.
That's the problem. You can never find it in English, and I've actually had my eye on this game for a number of years because I was like, oh, it would be cool to see it in English, and no one's ever translated it. I'm assuming it's because every time someone tries, the Swedish chef just murders them, and they end up in a pie. And then that's it.
I'm just scrolling away on Facebook. And I go, oh, what's that? That's an RPG. Click. Blah, blah. Swedish, 40 years old, now in English. Jared.
Yep.
Take a look at this.
And then like 5 minutes later, I was like, backed it. So it's So it's currently on Kickstarter, and it's being the English version is being printed. So this is how crazy.
Hardback and PDF.
And PDF, yes. So it's on Kickstarter. It's being printed by Free League Publishing, and this is how crazy it was. Backed in 4 minutes. Like they went live, and in 4 minutes the game was completely backed because you have to understand. So what is about to happen is I have a bachelor's in history, in American history, and I love history. History is my favorite subject because you can learn. It's a very cool subject. I love history, right? I'm a huge history nerd. So I'm about to drop tons of history. So back in the day, tabletop role-playing wasn't exclusively something that the Americans created. It's been around. Collective storytelling has been part of human culture forever, right?
Yeah, for a long time.
Eternal. I mean, like, look at the stories like Gilgamesh, Beowulf. That's collective storytelling. Now, back in the 80s, you had someone, Gary Gygax, right? Gary Gygax was like, hey, I'm going to take this. Well, it was like the 70s. I'm going to take this game called Chainmail, and we're going to shrink it down to a miniature kind of tabletop game, and then we're going to call it Dungeons and Dragons. It was Gary Gygax and
Pete Anderson? Something Anderson.
No. It was the guy who wrote Blackmore. Dave Arneson.
I always get Arneson.
Very similar. Dave Arneson kind of created Dungeons and Dragons, and Gary Gygax was kind of the face of the system. So this came out but there was a system that kind of came out adjacent called RuneQuest, and that system's become very obscure. They've had a number of additional updates, but RuneQuest was kind of sent all over the world. D&D never really got that big. You have to remember TSR, when it was printing, was very small. And it was they were only making paperback books, like, so that's why it's very rare to find old TSR stuff, because it was all paper, and you have to understand kids had them and they put it in their backpack. They went to school. You see it in Stranger Things. They go to school, put their stuff in their backpack, get smushed up. I mean, we all remember being little kids, right? So it's very rare to find old TSR like manuals, right? The first edition, AD&D and stuff like that. So RuneQuest came out, different system, was sold internationally. So basically, people got it over in Sweden, and they were like, this is really cool. And then they kind of cobbled together other systems to make their own system. That was the first edition of Dragons. This game, which roughly translates to Dragons and Demons.
Yeah, basically Dragons and Demons.
Dragons and Demons, or DoD. It was first published. The original publishing was published in 1982. So this is technically older than me. Now, some people argue that it's older than 1982. It's based on RuneQuest combined with this other stuff called Magic World, which was like a booklet. Then it was republished, like second edition came out in 1984, and that means it's as old as me currently. The 1984 publishing was what has been the established Dragons and Demons. Now they're up to, at this point in 2019. It was obviously different companies took over, like Wizards of the Coast took over TSR and such, and stuff like that. So in 2019, 2015, Riot Minds announced they re-released the 1987 edition of this book, and Riot Minds had this edition, right? So this was now, I believe, the 5th edition of this game. In 2015, it was like the 5th edition.
But it was still not in English, correct?
And it was still not in English. This was completely all still done in Swedish. In August of 2021, so last year, Riot Minds, it sold the IP to Free League Publishing, and now Free League Publishing just this year, so 2022, did the Kickstarter today, actually August 30th.
Yeah, today is when it popped up on my
live feed. I just blew a ton of
and
money.
They finally got the Swedish stuff on retainer.
They did,
and they got it done.
Yes.
So the cool thing about this is, obviously, look, we're not being paid. Jared backed this with his own money, and I'm assuming if he backs it, he's gonna slide me a PDF, so I didn't have to back it. Yes. I don't know. This is his jam. We didn't pay. We weren't paid. We weren't contacted. We didn't reach out to them. We just think because I know that Jared's been salivating for this game.
Oh my god,
for years. When I found out about it, I shot him a message and I knew he was going to back it. I almost instantly knew he was going to back it. They have a
$75 tier.
Yeah,
and I backed at the $75 tier. Which
I almost was going to back. Fun enough, the printed edition is not that much money.
No, it's not. So it's
you get the print edition and the PDF, but obviously it's in some sort of foreign currency, but it kind of translates around. But yeah, if you want to, I will link actually the Kickstarter page in chat if anyone wants to check it out. Like I said, we're not sponsored. We didn't. There's no money changing hands. I just thought this was cool, and then Jared's like, "Oh my god, it's happening!"
Yes. If anyone from Free League Publishing is around, or anyone knows them, and they want to sponsor us to do like a one shot or something, we'll be more than happy. MVNG will sell their souls for just a little bit of money.
Someone buys a bag of chips.
Yeah, just send us some pizza and you can get
but the cool thing is they gave you a quick start guide on how to play free of charge to anyone. You don't have to back it. You literally could just go to the Kickstarter and download the quick start guide. It does not include character creation, but it does give you pre-gens and it does tell you how to play. And that's that's what we're going to actually go over today, because there are some things I like and there's some things that I'm on the fence about. But I think as a system in general, I have a funny feeling that this is not the original version.
No.
I think this is like a revamped modern take on the original system.
Yes. So the original version didn't have levels. That was one of the things that was not part of the game.
I don't think this one has levels either.
I don't think this one has levels. So unlike... Again,
this is a mix between Call of Cthulhu, Index Card RPG, and 5th edition. And if you know those three systems, this is basically those three games mushed together into one
jammed
game.
into each other. Yeah. The artwork, I don't know who's the artist. I've followed them. I love it. I love the artwork. The artwork, literally, the moment you look at the artwork, it's very reminiscent of the 1980s.
For those of you who are watching the stream, you can get the whoosh. There's the book. There's the front cover of the Quick Start Guide.
Yep.
As we kind of move out of the way. Ooh, that you're a little large.
Yeah.
I gotta move you.
So, the second edition book, when it was printed, actually had Elric, from the Elric of Malvern saga, which is like a very similar, like a fantasy book series, similar to like what's his name? The Grey Mouser and Farfar, and like Conan the Barbarian. It's very sword and sorcery, stuff like that. It's actually like the Jack Vance stuff. It inspired all of like the D&D stuff. This is very reminiscent of it. I thought it was Elric because of the white hair. If you know anything about the character, he has like stark white hair. He's an albino. So I thought that might be him, but yeah, it's very reminiscent. So the artwork is really cool. It reminds me of like the murals you would see on the like side of vans in like the 80s, but like cleaned up, right? Like very like fresh and clean. So it's really cool. Artwork's really cool. I've always loved the artwork. Now I'm super amped to actually read the words, because you can find PDFs of like bits and pieces of it, of the game online. The problem is it's in Swedish, and my
go ahead and learn that Swedish.
Yeah,
and bring back some meatballs.
Yeah, I could go to my assumption is everyone in IKEA speaks Swedish, so maybe
just bring it there and play in IKEA.
Yeah, just explain to them, be like, make me understand this. And
no, just have one of them GM the game. Screw that noise.
Oh, word. Yeah.
In the middle of IKEA.
So what's really cool, and this is something that I find interesting from Western systems, from American systems to European systems. There's another European system I want to get into. It's a German one, has a very German name. I can't pronounce it. It actually slips my mind, but it's not Zweihander. It's not that one. But what was very popular with the European systems, the European tabletop role-playing systems, was a single universe that continued. So Dragons and Demons,
so very much like Legend of the Five Rings-esque.
Legends of the Five Rings, exactly. Okay. So Dragons and Demons, for a very long time, I believe till the 2015, the 5th version, it stayed in one continent called Arab Altor, or Arab being the name of the continent and Altor being the name of the planet on which the continent was on, right? And it was your basic medieval. So the entire lore went in this one area, just went from basically 1982 to 2015. In 2015, they changed the universe. They changed the area, introducing a new, darker campaign setting known as Chronopia. It's still on the same continent and on the same planet, but it's not. It would be like if someone took like the United States and made it a D&D map, and we were just playing in New York, and then a new system came out like years later, then they were playing in Chicago. That's kind of what happened here. They started playing in the new, so that was in 2015. It was on a different hemisphere of this game. I believe this is going back to the original world. Of
what I read about the lore, the short snippet, the little kind of blurb introduction that they gave in the beginning was actually, I think, is kind of awesome. It's very much invokes older. The system doesn't really invoke older editions of like D&D or old RPGs, but definitely the introduction does. So first of all, we're just gonna take a look at this cool artwork. I mean, this artwork is just awesome, most awesome.
Dope. Yeah. So I don't know if anyone noticed, if you go back, Steve.
Yep.
If you go back a little bit, you'll get to see something. So you see you got your Gandalf character, the wizard. You got your elvish character with the pointy ear right there. You got your dwarf with the 2 axes, and then in the near the elf is this weird looking creature. I don't know. It might be a halfling. We'll get into it. I know what it is.
I was about to zoom in, but we'll get into that later because that's cool. That is so cool. There's 2 cool races in this game. I mean, there's your standard stuff. It's not that the standard stuff isn't cool, but there is 2 cool races that are in this.
It's so ridiculous.
Oh yeah.
But the moment you're like, we're playing a game with magic. Like the moment you're like, magic, right?
Yeah, just magic.
And you let go of all that, you get right. Like instantly,
just have fun with it.
Yeah, you're just like, I'm all about this.
So to boil down the lore, and I know that Jared's probably gonna chop my head off on this because I'm gonna boil down the lore. Basically, there's 2 primordial forces. There's dragons and demons. Mm-hmm. Technically, it is implied that dragons are good and demons are bad, but it also implies that there's some bad dragon people too. So, but there's this battle, and then the regular peons that your players and everything are stuck in between, and you have to be heroes. Because why wouldn't you be heroes?
Yeah. Basically, they say dragons are the forces of stability and law, like law and order, and demons are chaos. And madness.
Which, yet again, that's what, to me, that's what struck me as like older versions of D&D, where the original, there were only 2 alignments at the beginning of the game, which was law and chaos. There wasn't good and evil. I mean, you were probably a good character. I mean, you could be selfish, whatever, but there was literally only 2 things, law and then chaos. And those are the only two opposing forces in the game. So... it is a D20 based system, kind of. We're gonna get into a little bit of that, but there are 6 playable races. They call them kin in this game. There is your, for the most part, standard stats. So you have strength, con, agility instead of dexterity, but it's basically the same thing. Intelligence, willpower instead of wisdom, and charisma. So it's good for people who play D&D, people who play Pathfinder, people who play a lot of those games. This is going to seem pretty familiar. So there's nothing that's going to be wildly out of place for you. And yet again, it starts with a base of either between 3 and 18, which implies a 3D, 4D6, 3D6 system, where 4D6 will drop the lowest of some degree.
Yeah, again, they didn't give you character creation, but as just based on the numbers, that's probably how you're deriving some of these numbers. You have a profession, which we're gonna, like I said, they didn't really the cool thing is your profession is basically what you did before you became an adventurer, and each profession gives you an ability. So even though, so to jump ahead a little bit, willpower is a currency in the game. It's an ability you expend, and it's used for spell casting. I want to cast a spell, I burn up some willpower and cast a spell. But you're like, oh, what happens if I don't play a person that casts spells? Well, your profession abilities and your racial abilities, for the most part, also cost willpower. So this is an important stat regardless of what kind of character you make, which is awesome. So how many times like, oh man, my intelligence doesn't mean anything because I'm the fighter, I'm the upfront person. I need to have a high hit point pool because I have these 2 cool abilities over here that cost willpower. So I want to use them. It's basically, how do you fix the big dumb fighter?
Basically.
That's, they were like, they looked at it, they said, hey, how do you fix the big dumb fighter? You give them a stat and abilities that they would want to use.
Yes.
So basically what happens is race, your kin, right? Your species, whatever you want to call it, gives you special abilities that no one else can get except for other of your kin. And your professions gives you special abilities that only people of that profession can get, and no one else can get. So if I'm a baker and Steve's a candlestick maker, Steve can't steal my knowledge on bread baking, and I can't steal how to make candles from him.
It's a secret lost art.
It's the secret lost art of candlestick making. But that's 100% true, and that's something interesting. It changes up how you would
build your character.
Play?
Build your character and also role play, because it really puts more of a focus of your. And that's one of the things I like. I mean, yes, it technically is an ability, but I think that the fact that it's a more active component of your character instead of like a passive, like, okay, well, I'm a dwarf, which means I get these stats.
Yeah.
Well, after so many levels, I don't see the stats anymore. I just see my collated character, my entire character right here. I lost the fact that I got a +2 to Constitution. Right? It's just something I forgot about. I always had it, And in this case, it's like I'm actively using, as a dwarf, I'm actively using this ability. Whatever the ability dwarves get, I'm actively using it. So every once in a while, that me being a dwarf is important. or me being a human, or me being an elf, or some of the other races. It's more of an active thing of like, oh man, remember the time you used your ability and cool stuff happened? Instead of just like, I get that +2, because that you eventually you're blind to the pluses.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I think this starts off strong. And there's a lot, like I said, there's some things in this I like, and there's some things I think I'm like, but we're gonna get to that. But yeah, the kin having a innate ability and the professions having a profession ability, thumbs up, awesome. I think it's sweet. They also have here, if you will eventually get to, we're gonna skip ahead a little bit. You can see sometimes you're gonna see these green boxes. These are optional rules. They have an optional rule, which I think should be a core rule. That's just me.
One of them is like they have like a full page of like just an optional rule
that should be part of the core game,
and it needs to be core because of how awesome it is. So, So again, we're being a bit chaotic,
but get into the memento. I think the memento is a cool concept.
So one of the things is, so you have your standard stats, right? Strength, we talked about that.
Yeah.
You have your profession, which is kind of like what you were doing before you became an adventurer. Each profession has a professional ability. The pre-gen comes with them, right? So when you get this quick play, comes with pre-gens.
Yeah, at the end of this will be the pre-gens. We'll take a look at them.
So some of the stuff I really liked, right? So you have your stats based on attributes, right? So you have a number of stats based on your attribute. Movement is in meters, not feet. It's not that hard to figure it out.
I wish they would have just went, if they were modernizing this game, I wish they would have just went with squares.
Squares would make sense. There's a reason why they want meters. It's European. They used a metric. We used the correct system. I only say that because how many European countries got to the moon? Oh, none. Just us. Oh, no.
Throwing a shade immediately.
I'm just saying.
But yeah, so they explain it. I think they explain it way too late in the book, but they explain they explain a 2x2 meter is a square. Yeah. So if you look at a grid, you could eventually figure out the movement. It's just obviously a lot. Yeah. Get fucked Euro trash. Tactical Santa.
Tactical Santa. Get F Euro trash. Yeah.
But yeah, I think they explained it too late that a 2x2 meter is a square. They needed to explain that way earlier in the book, just so I was lost for it. I'm like, do I have to measure now for this?
I was like,
but eventually they clarified it.
Do I need? Yeah. So damage bonuses. You have 2 separate damage bonuses, one base for strength weapons and one base for agility weapons. Very common very common for 5th edition, right? Even Pathfinder has 5th edition. Bit. Yeah, 5th edition, super simple. Yeah. You have hit points, how much damage you could take. We all understand hit points.
It's equal to your constitution.
Yep.
Yeah, there's no like
constitution.
Yeah, so there's no like I'm this class and I get this die based on this class, and then my constitution gives me a bonus. No, it's like if I have a 10 constitution, I have 10 hit points. If I have an 18 constitution, I have 18 hit points.
Yep.
And this also works with willpower too. So you get as many points of willpower as you have your willpower stat. If any of you have played Call of Cthulhu, this is very similar to how Call of Cthulhu does it, where it's like referencing this number is another stat.
Exactly.
And that's how, like I said, this is very much not like D&D. Yeah. In this case.
So next you have skills. This is very common. These are, if we play D&D, you understand that Pathfinder skills and knowledges and abilities you've acquired during or prior to your life adventure. You're based on levels on a scale from 1 to 18. The higher the score, the better. There's a reason for that. We'll get into that in a second. Motivation. Adventurers are unique individuals. This is your own personal thing, why you want to do this. And this kind of touches into what Steve was talking about with the memento. In addition to other equipment, you can have a memento, an item of great sentimental value that you always carry with you. Once per game session, you could use your memento to recover an additional condition during a stretch rest. So that's stretch rest is similar to
short
rest from 5th edition. That's
they have
the best way.
Yeah, so they have 3 different measurements of time. So they have a round, which is 10 seconds. They have a stretch, which is 15 minutes, and they have a shift, which is 6 hours. Basically, that's like your long rest, short rest, and like a round of combat.
Yeah. Similar to Pathfinder, where you could take a 10-minute to recover your focus point. That would be a stretch rest. So it's the same effect. So that's really cool because like you have your motivation and maybe that leads into your memento. I like so again, the memento option is a green box, so it's an optional rule. I think that should be a standard rule because it's a really
no.
Cool
remember the dark green boxes there. We're going to flip over. Yeah, the dark green. These like versus optional is the dark green ones. So the little box is just like a sidebar.
Yeah. So
every character typically has a memento.
Yeah. So on top of that, you have gear. And I like this. So gear and encumbrance is super easy. Ready? Encumbrance is half your strength rounded down. So if you have a strength of a 12, it's a 6. Rounded up. Sorry, not down. So it's if you have a strength of a 12, it's a 6. If you have a strength of a 13, it's a 7, right? Because it would be half of that. I think you would round up. So it would be a 7. So you have 7 encumbrance. Ready? Everything is a single number. So items will be like 1 encumbrance. That means it takes 1. You can carry 7 things of encumbrance. And they tell you, and there's a lot of really cool things. And again, I think this is nice. They talk about stuff where it's like weapon in hand. You can have 3 weapons on your belt or on you that you can just grab. Helmet, armor, and shields, you have to put it onto your character. It doesn't count to your encumbrance.
Yeah, the cool thing is, so the weapons in hand are like the weapons you have at the ready, not things that are like stowed away.
Yeah.
So because the encumbrance is so low, they do give you freebies. Like you can have up to 3 weapons stored on your person. Those 3 weapons don't count towards your encumbrance.
Yeah,
the weapon and the armor and the helmet and your shield that you have on at the time don't count towards encumbrance. If it's in, say you have a spare shield in your bag, that's going to count. The one I have on my arm, that's not going to count because it's kind of already on your body.
Yeah. Arrows and sling stones, they literally say, don't worry about it. As long as you have it, you have infinite arrows or sling stones. They're like, don't even worry about it.
It's basically Legolas it because it's like,
they're just like
having a quiver assumes you have a copious amount of arrows.
Yeah. The only time you don't have it is when your GM's like, you fell into the river, you lost it, and that's it.
Yeah, or you were arrested and they took your quiver. You don't physically have the quiver.
Yeah. Heavy items, so they say like really heavy items count as 2, 3, or even more. So like I said, it's just basic small numbers. Oh, this greatsword is encumbrance of 2. Okay, if I have 7, now I can only carry 5. Super easy. They talk about tiny items. Anything that you can hold in the palm of your hand doesn't affect your encumbrance at all. They are recorded on their own character sheet. Like, just
and then coins have weight, but only in like
the hundreds.
Lots of 100. So up to 100 doesn't count. 1 to 200, that's 1 encumbrance. 2 to 300, that's 2 points, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And they have the 10 coin based system, so everything is a silver based system. They could 10 copper is a silver, 10 silver is a gold, easy.
Yeah. Over encumbrance, basically, if you have over encumbrance, basically you have to make a strength roll whenever you want to move or move in a round of combat or walk for a shift of traveling. If you fail, you just stop, or you like can drop everything.
You got to drop something to go under encumbrance, or you just don't move.
Yeah, you're just like
it's too much. I'll wait.
We've all played Skyrim. Basically, you picked up that flower. It was too much. You put the flower down. You can now run. That's literally what it is. It's Skyrim. Oh no, this meat pie made me stop moving.
Let me eat it first.
I could jump over a wall now. that one bit. I couldn't jump over the wall, but so it's a very comedic way to look at it, right? But it's also super easy.
It's simple.
It's super simple, and we constantly see this in mainstream games with 5th edition and 2nd edition. How do you make your characters have this concept of a value of how much they can carry? You'll start to see players talk about like coming up with newer systems. Even in Index Card RPG, I find they created a very fast system. You have 10 item slots in your backpack. That's all you can hold.
That's what reminded me of Index Card RPG from this is stuff like this, with like really simple rules where it's like, this doesn't need to be complicated.
Yeah,
you take this number, you cut it in half, you round up. That's how many items you can have. Okay, if an item is big, it counts as multiple items. Done. Yeah. Like, I don't know why we're still talking about this. That's like, make it simple, make it easy. The fact that my character is holding 5 items, it should not be an integral part of an equation that I need to deal with on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, and we see it all the time, right? Like we see it in the 5th edition stuff. We see it in the Pathfinder 2nd edition stuff. Oh, like today I was actually just talking to someone. They were like, "Well, how do you make healing kits? Like, how do you do like refit? Like, when do you have an amount on healing kits?" And I was like, "No, I do a 3-strike system. If you crit fail on a check, you lose 3 strikes and you're out. So if you have 3 crit strikes, that's your kit's empty." This is a similar effect. It's just, hey man, just move forward. Like, trust me, this isn't the fun part. Micromanaging is like Diablo 2. Micromanaging your armor is not the fun part, right? Or Path of Exile. That's you're playing Tetris with this, so I can have this one short sword that I'm not using, but some reason I need to have it in my backpack.
Hey, don't be knocking Diablo 3. Keith and I, my buddy who plays Diablo 3 with me, I teleported 10 times to destroy all my gear to get all the resources out of it.
I'm not saying destroy it, but what I'm saying is you got, like, we're playing effing Tetris to keep it in the backpack. But it's a very simple system. Love it. Keep it simple, stupid, right? That's basically the concept here, because we've all seen movies. You want to play the good parts of the movie. There's a reason why in the books on Lord of the Rings, right? Let's simple Lord of the Rings. In the books can be very boring because there are chapters where they're just like hiking up a hill. And you're like, wow, this is super arbitrary. Why do I need to know this, right? But
in the movie, you see them coming out of the cave. Like,
they're moving quickly along because you want to get to the cool stuff. You want to see Bilbo talk to Smaug. You want to see Legolas fucking shoot down an elephant. Which only counts as one, by the way.
So we're gonna, if Jared's okay with this, I'm gonna skip over to rolling dice because this is gonna be completely different to where.
Yeah, we're not gonna look at rolling dice till a little later because I'm a little confused by
skills,
the skill challenges.
Okay, so we're talking about die rolling right now because I understood it because I read it a couple times and I got it.
I read it like once, and then I read it out loud to my son who was trying to go to sleep, and he just looked at me.
He wasn't helping you either.
He didn't help. As a 3-year-old, he was not helpful.
All right, so the one thing that if some of you have already kind of read ahead at this point, notice that rolling a quote-unquote, so this is where the dragon and demon concept is. So demon generally is bad, and this is why I say demon generally bad and dragons are generally good, is that rolling a 1 on a d20 is rolling a dragon, which essentially is a critical. It means it's always a success. And it's like, wait a minute, 1 is a critical fail. In this game, it's completely opposite. And this reminds me of Fat Cow, of like rolling low is good. And yet again, also, if you think of Cthulhu, rolling low is good and rolling high is bad. So this is what this system. So as you see, rolling a 1 on a d20 means you're particularly successful. It's called rolling a dragon. In combat, the dragon roll has specific effects. You kind of pick. It doesn't have to be one of these, but you kind of pick one effect. And then in combat, there's specific things you have to pick, and you pick one of the listed things. But some suggestions: you oppress everyone around you, you achieve more than is intended, the action is performed faster than usual. So these are the things that as a GM you can, or as a player, you can kind of decide. Let's assume that it's not combat related. Like you were talking with somebody, normally you say, oh, talking would like take 10 minutes. Okay, well, you were able to talk that person down in 1 minute. Or you were not only able to convince that one person you were talking to, but the 3 other people that maybe you had to talk to later heard the conversation, and now they want to help you without having to make additional die rolls. So we're just kind of like, you can kind of flare it up as you wish. Okay, so and then rolling a demon, rolling a 20 is always a failure, no matter how good your skill is. And here's an important thing: a demon roll cannot, meaning rolling a 20, rolling the worst possible die roll, cannot be pushed. And I think we're just going to jump ahead and talk about pushing because I think this is an important. No. Okay. No. So it can't be pushed. We're
going to talk about boons and banes, which is your advantage, disadvantage. Except you can have multiple boons and multiple banes. They counter each other out. So you might get both boon and bane to your roll. Each boon negates 1 bane, and vice versa. If you have 1 boon and 1 bane, make a normal roll. If you have 2 boons and 1 bane, it counts as a boon. So apparently, you're going to get more than 1. And this was really cool. So on the page number 7, in the oldest times with the 2 elves, I also like this because the elves aren't all hoity-toity. There's like fighter elves, which I think is cool.
I like the fact that the races or whatever they call them don't give stats, so you could kind of play whatever you want, which kind of funny who the kind of tank is in the group.
Yes. Only one chance as a rule, and this is really cool. I'm glad they put this in because it always comes up sooner or later in a game. Yeah. It always comes up sooner or later. As a rule, you only have one chance to succeed with an action. Once you have rolled the die, you may not roll again to achieve the same goal. You need to try something different. Wait until the circumstances have changed in a substantial way, or let another player try. This rule does not apply in combat. Obviously, talking about swinging a sword and stuff like that. But like, that's like when the player's like, "Can I make a perception check? Oh, I failed. Okay, I'm gonna make another perception check."
Or, you know, like picking a lock, I'm going to try again, or try to convince the person to join me again and again. So that's really discouraged in this game. But we're also going to go like, how do I fail a skill check? We haven't gone over that yet. I kind of skipped over because I thought we wanted to talk about push, but
we'll get to push. Yeah. I'm excited for push too. We gotta wait.
Yeah. So rolling a check against whatever skill is, or you're fighting, or whatever like that. Everything is revolved around your skills, or save the fact that there may be no skill for the situation. You're rolling against your stats. And what you're trying to do, remember, rolling low is good. You're trying to roll equal to or under your whatever skill you're trying to deal with. So if I have a 15 in swords and I try to swing my sword at you, I don't care how hard you are to hit, because you're not really that hard to hit. I have to roll under 15 or under in my sword skill. And if I do that, I hit you. We're going to get into how armor and stuff plays into that in a second. But everything is based on skills. Now, say the GM says, well, what you're trying to do really doesn't match up to any of the skills you have. Okay, well, that's an agility check, or that's a strength check, or that's a willpower check, and you roll under your stat. Same way you do as a skill. It's really simple. So the higher your skills are, the easier it becomes, because your chance to rolling under goes up.
Yeah. Then additionally, does the opposed rolls. And this is right before pushing. So we're almost there, Steve, I promise. So on this page, on page 8, it's really cool. Again, this really dope night elf. I really like it. I like the picture. Very real. Reminds me of like a really
stylized real.
Yeah, it's cool. So opposed roll. Sometimes you must beat an enemy in an opposed roll to succeed with an action. This means that both you and your adversary roll the die. For example, opposed rolls are used when trying to persuade a reluctant individual or sneak past a watchful guard. So that's interesting. In combat, it only counts as an action for the active party. So meaning I'm trying to swing on you, like Steve said. If your roll fails, your action fails as well, regardless of your opponent's roll. If your roll succeeds while your opponents fail, your action succeeds. If both succeeds, and this was the confusing part, your action succeeds if the result of your roll is lower than or equal to your opponent's roll. If the opponent's roll is lower than yours, you auto fail.
Yeah, so there's three different conditions here. You fail your roll. Remember, you're still rolling under a skill. So whatever, I'm rolling a sneak check. My sneak's a 10. I roll my dice, and I rolled an 11. It doesn't matter what my opponent rolls, because I'm trying to like sneak, and it doesn't matter how good their vision is. I failed to sneak. I have a clear, defined failure state.
Yeah.
Second thing, I succeeded and my opponent failed. No matter how much they failed by, I succeeded in sneaking, they failed to spot me, I succeeded. It only matters when both of you succeed. You succeeded in sneaking and they succeeded in spotting you. It's who's got the better roll, not high roll, the better roll. So i.e. who rolls lower in this case. So if my sneak is a 10 and maybe their skill to spot me is also a 10 and I rolled a 2 and they rolled a 3, I'm sneaking. If I rolled a 3 and they rolled a 2, they spot me.
Yes.
And so at that point, that's the only time where you can test the 2 die rolls, is when you both succeeded at a composed check, who's better. And that's really what it comes down to.
I'm going to say this. I haven't played it yet. I think that's a lot of extra rolling. Personally, not a fan of that rule. I don't know. Like, it should just be like an enemy's target number is 12.
Remember, so, it's based on your skill.
Yeah. So then why am I like like in my head, it'd be cool to do wizard spells, like wizard combat like that. Like you're casting a spell and I'm another caster and I can like be like, rah, like You're like, Avoda Kedavra, and I'm like, no, I don't know the opposite to that spell. But like that would be cool because you're both rolling against each other to see if spells go off. So in my head, you play out that Harry Potter concept, like you're both slinging spells at each other, and you know.
I have a funny feeling because we don't know the old system. That's really like 100%. Yeah. I have a funny feeling that this was a remnant of the old system that they wanted to keep intact.
I concur. Because
I mean, that's just a shot in the dark, but it's just it's a little weird.
Modern systems like you would have you would have passive perception on monsters, right? Or like in second edition second edition Pathfinder, you have secret checks, which is cool. Like, oh, I want to make a knowledge check, and then I would roll. Maybe you could do a secret check like this. This instead of doing like I'm homebrewing rules for a game I haven't even seen the actual rules to. But like off the top of my head, I would say turn these into secret checks, and then I roll so that you can't see what happens. So in your head, to keep the role playing
you're sneaking,
forward, you're sneaking, and then instead you're like literally just tiptoeing in front of the guard, just like, and then all of a sudden the guard's like, you know what I mean? That would be my homebrew rule, but I digress. And now we come to Steve's favorite part. I agree, this part is really cool, and it changes the game.
Yeah,
go ahead, Steve.
So anytime you're trying to do a check, you can try to push that roll. If you've already rolled and you failed, you can try to push. And this is all this green text. It looks way more complicated than it is.
So much green.
But if you fail a check, you can choose to push the roll, which means you make another attempt. Now, if you already had a boon or a bane, you roll them again. So if I was rolling 2 and taking the lower, which is a benefit, you do the same thing again. If you were rolling 2 and picking the higher, which is a detriment, you do that again. I.e., if you roll a 20 or a critical failure or a demon, you can't do this.
Yes.
You re-roll, and then you have to take the new result. Just like almost any other re-roll in any game known to man, you take the new result. You don't get to pick between the two. Here's the immediately thing. Whenever you push, you immediately, after your re-roll, you suffer a condition. Each condition is based on one of your 6 stats. And what that means is you have a bane on those rolls after this is resolved. So I was trying to sneak past that guard, and I rolled a 19. I'm like, oh man, I almost demons, and oh man, I'm gonna push and I'm gonna re-roll. Oh man, I got a 2. Awesome, yes. Now I'm almost guaranteed that I am sneaking the guard, but now I have to take a condition. Now I can technically take any condition I want, but the GM has to be convinced that, like, okay, well, I was making it technically an agility check, but I want to take it to my willpower, okay? And my willpower condition, they each have a name, and the willpower condition is scares. Anytime I make a willpower check now, I'll be at a disadvantage. I'll be rolling 2 and taking the higher or the worst of the 2 results. Well, how do I describe to the GM that failing on pushing my sneak check made me scared? Well, okay, I was like, man, that guard, he almost saw me, and it, put the fear of death in me, because if he's alerted, he's going to notify the whole keep that I'm here. Hence, now you could say that your character's scared. Now, if the GM passes off on it, then maybe sometimes the GM says, no, that doesn't work. You got to pick another one, or what have you. But the other key point here is you can't take a condition on a stat that has a condition.
Yes, you can have multiple. If I may jump in, you can have. So this goes down. This was a little weird. It was under like the conditions, healing, and rest section, which is a little further down. So if you suffer a condition, so let's say I have the scared on my willpower, right? And I suffer another condition that would be scared. I can't doubly scared. I can't be doubly scared. I have to then choose another stat to take the condition on.
Yep.
You can only have a max of 6 conditions, and once you do, clearly you're terrible. But on top of that, you can't take any more conditions to push. So you're no longer being allowed to keep pushing those stats.
And remember, you're now on disadvantage or Bane on every single die roll you make, because everything is going to be attached to one of these stats. So it's going to be a bad day for you, but that means you got 6 rerolls throughout the day. Now remember, you can take what is determined as a short rest, a shift rest, a stretch rest.
Yeah, shift is a long one.
Yeah, and then you can you were able to, I think you get 1 condition back. Yeah, heal one. During a switch, you can also recover 2d6 willpower points and heal a condition of your choice. If you spend your memento for your day, you can heal an additional 1. Mm-hmm. If you long rest, you heal back all your hit points, all your willpower, and you resolve all your conditions.
Yeah,
it's simple.
So there's no fast way to get rid of a condition. So there's no check on a condition, which I think makes the game move a lot faster.
Yeah, there is a check for healing hit points, but
that's different.
Other than that, it's not. Yeah, there's no other way to heal conditions.
Yeah. So basically, you're in the middle of sneaking. And the condition names are fun. Dazed is strength, sickly is constitution, exhausted is agility, angry is intelligence, which I understand that one. Scared is willpower, which makes sense. Like that makes sense. And this is my favorite. Dirty is charisma. I don't understand that. Like, you just got like pie to the face. Like the Swedish chef walks by, just and that's it. Like, dirty is the best one.
Yeah, that was quite funny.
I think that's really funny. They don't say what they are. They just say you have this condition. So,
remember, having a condition gives you that Bane on any of those checks based on that, whatever condition you have based on that stat.
Now, remember, we talked about having multiple Banes and multiple Boons. You can have a Bane, you can be dirty, and then your GM could be like, well, this also inflicts a Bane. So now you have 2 Banes on top of that. Now, remember, you only roll once, but if something gives you a boon, obviously spells probably or something, you see the math. They cancel each other out. They start to cancel.
The whole pushing die roll should be an integral part. I don't know why they're making it an optional rule. Maybe during their play testing of this game, maybe some people didn't like it. Maybe this is too far from the original game. I think that this is awesome.
Yeah,
it's unique.
I agree with you. I think it has to be part of the main system. If I was playing, I would play with this condition all the time. I think maybe what happens is your players become a bit aggressive pushing things, and mid-session, suddenly half the party has 3 conditions. And then they're like, well, I'm gonna go to bed forever.
I think that could happen. Yeah, I agree. That can happen. I think that can happen the first couple times they play. Be like, oh, I can 3 rerolls, and then they realize, like, oh my god, I am terrible. I'm absolutely terrible. Yeah. Because in everything I do, everything I touch is now horrible. So I think that this is just it's a little bit of a steep learning curve. But once they realize it, that the pushing should be on. Now, it shouldn't be like a last resort thing, but it shouldn't be the first thing you turn to. It should be kind of like that middle of the road thing.
Yeah, I think
people eventually learn it.
Yeah, I think if you're trying to sneak, like you're trying to sweet talk a guard who's watching your friend who's about to be hung, right? And you're like, hey, like you send, like, obviously you see the guard's standing there, all guard-like, doing guard-y stuff, and you send like your like the first character goes, and they're like, hey, big boy, they try to sweet talk and they fail their roll, right? And we already know you can't multiple rolls until something dramatically changes.
Yeah, at that point you can push, though.
And then you're like, okay, and then you're like, it didn't work, so we're gonna send someone else. Now we're gonna send someone else. We're gonna send Steve, and Steve comes over and just goes, I'm gonna bend like a metal bar in front of the guard to like make him run, and Steve fails. And let's say we only have a 3-man team, right? So it's Steve, the other guy, and the third guy who's gonna get hung. And Steve tries and Steve fails. That would be the time to push, because like you're like, okay, if I fail, then we're swinging swords, and then it might be a bigger problem. So I think you're right. It would have to be like you would have to see what you're in you know.
Yeah, it's going to depend on the situation. Like I said, I think that maybe the reason, like I said, they made this optional is because that people were maybe abusing it, or maybe they were too scared to use it. I think this is a fun, interesting way of using skills, especially the way the skills work, where you're trying to roll low, and you're not really having to. And here's the other thing: is you're not adding tons of bonuses. There is no bonuses. It's whatever your skill is, roll under.
Number. Yeah. So and remember when we were speaking earlier, higher the number, better, because that means you have a wider berth of chance to pass. So if I have a 15, that's really good, because I'm like, oh man, I have a 5% chance of failure, right? And 25%. Obviously 25% chance of, 25% chance of failure. 5%
per number.
Yeah. So 25% chance of failure, that's really good on a D20
means 75% chance of success.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and then, and then at that point, but then like, let's say I have like a 10, you're 50-50.
Yeah.
Which is rough, right? Like it's rough either side of the coin, like high or low.
But then there's ways to get boons. There's ways to get, again, we have rerolls via the pushing system. There are ways of getting better. So in essence, my 50-50 is a little bit better than 50-50.
Yeah. I obviously,
such cool artwork.
The artwork is fucking dope. All right, so that's pushing. Pushing is really cool. They also talk about getting help from your friends.
Yes, that was another key point.
And again, this is a green box that's not part of this, but again, if you're playing with the push, you're probably going to be playing with this additionally.
Yeah.
Help from others. Other PCs or NPCs can help you succeed at a die roll. They must declare this before you roll the die, which is fine. We all understand that. And 95% of the tables, someone's gonna be like, I was gonna help him. I swear, I just didn't get to say it fast enough. That happens 1,000,001% of the times. It must also make sense in the story. I love that statement, right? Like, how many times does people I was gonna help them? How are you going to help the rogue pick the lock?
Moral support.
Yeah, I was going to tell them good luck. It's like, okay, roll a charisma roll. The individual helping you must be physically present and have the capability to help you. The GM actually has the final say. Love that statement, right? Whenever someone helps you with a roll, you get a boon, which we spoke about in combat. Helping counts as an action. By helping someone else, you lose your action for that round. NPCs can help each other just as players can. So villains, obviously that's speaking in terms of combat, because the villains are gonna the goblins are gonna help each other beat the one guy up, right? Like that's what's gonna happen.
Yeah, and a key note about conditions that monsters can't get conditions. Only players can get conditions. Even NPCs, I don't think NPCs can get conditions. It's just a player thing.
Yeah,
I think that's what they said, but you can always just house rule it. But
you can change it. And again, these are just the quick start rules. We don't even have monsters. We don't have a lot of stats, so I can't even build a character.
And then when there's virtually no spells either. There's only 6 spells.
Something like that, real small. So if you keep scrolling down, now we get to the fun stuff: combat and damage. I just want to take a moment to look at this art.
Oh, which one? Combat and damage.
Combat and damage. That big page of just combat and damage, man. Nope.
Oh, that one. Oh, yeah, I was on this one before.
Yeah. Oh, there it is. Combat. Look at that artwork, right? Like, can we just take a moment to talk about this artwork? You get so much expression from this. One, this is why reason why goblins. That's a goblin. That's an angry little goblin. You no longer want it to be like the party's friend. We've moved away from this silly little goblins could be friendly. Nope, this guy can't. Clearly. And then in the back, that's clearly an ogre or maybe a bugbear of sorts.
A bugbear or a hobgoblin.
Yeah, or a hobgoblin. But it has a villainous face, like that. The dark eyes. It's about. And look at that. And then you have the stoic dwarf.
A dwarf-ish. Yeah, that is dwarf.
It could be an fighter, right? Like you don't really know in size. Just because it has a long, really dwarves, the only way you know it's a dwarf is, when standing next to everyone else, because it could just be an older human. but you get so much from it. Gritty combat, love it. Rounds of initiative. This is a really cool fact. Drawing initiative. The reason why it's called drawing initiative is because to determine initiative, 10 playing cards are used, numbered 1 to 10. Normal playing cards work just fine. So it can be index cards, normal playing cards. Just count the aces as ones. Each player taking part in conflict, voluntarily or otherwise, draws a random card at the beginning of each round. The GM draws cards for the NPCs. This is called drawing initiative. The number of cards determine the order in which you will act. Number 1 acts first, and going in numerical order.
Yeah.
Your place in the initiative order is called your turn. Place your initiative card by your character sheet so everyone can see in which order you act. The GM puts their card or cards in front of them, so you always know where you're going. To make things simple, particularly in large battles, the GM can draw a single initiative card for a group. So like, five goblins, their initiative card is a 6, and another 5 goblins, their initiative card is an 8. I like this because it also gives you the capability of choosing to do, because a lot of people are like, and it's very common, right? We've all tried it, the moving initiative, where everyone, like, you constantly at the end of initiative, everyone re-rolls initiative to change their initiative. And then you get other systems that are trying to add new stuff like Pathfinder 2nd Edition, where you can use different skills to affect your initiative. The card initiative is the first one I feel that can 100% be re-rolled every turn, because you're just drawing a random card. It doesn't even matter. You know what I mean? Like, there's no, like, dex isn't high. That doesn't mean you're going to constantly be trying to get a high initiative with dex or agility. You're not going to be stealthing around to get a high initiative using your stealth modifier, or sweet talking to get your charisma modifier. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you could go, okay, this is what's going to happen. And then you could probably homebrew a bunch of rules into this. I already see myself homebrewing a ton of like initiative effects happening right away. Now there is surprise round. Surprise round is the funnest part. If you surprise the enemies, you basically get to choose your initiative. Like, everyone can grab a card and choose when they go. So then you'll kind of know when the monsters are going at that point.
For the first round of combat.
Yes.
So this is redrawn every round. So just because you draw the ace in the first round doesn't mean you get to keep it.
Yeah.
But there is also a way of affecting initiative, which is a variant rule, but I also think this is one of the rules that it should be integral in the game.
On your turn in the round, you can choose to wait. That means you swap initiative cards, and therefore places in initiative order with another creatures whose turn comes after yours. You can swap cards with other player characters, NPCs, and they cannot refuse to trade. However, you cannot swap initiative cards with anyone who has already had their turn. So I can't make the wizard who can cast Fireball go twice.
You can't make someone go twice, and you can't take some initiative that had already gone. So that's basically only people who are after you. And this isn't an action, but there's something you have to do on your turn. Oh, actually, on the beginning of the round, you on your turn in the round, then you can go, okay, well, I want your card, and they can't say no. Yeah. Here's the cool thing: we haven't gotten to that. But monsters, actually, they do get to it. Monsters often have multiple initiative cards, meaning that monsters will go multiple times in a turn. So they may go at 2, 5, and 8.
Yep.
Because the monsters can, like, they have like akin to like multi-attack, or they can act multiple times during your turn, making them much more dangerous. So I go to the monster. Okay, well, technically 2 happened already. I go with 3, but 5 is a better position for me because for some reason I'll take that 5 and I'll give that monster that 3. Because maybe no one's in range yet, right? So maybe no one's next to it, and it's a melee monster. I'll take that 3. All it's going to do is move, right? Yeah. And I'll take that 5, and I go, oh, okay, now it's in the perfect position for me to stab it.
Yep. And then after initiative, so we now figured out initiative. We now have actions and movement and combat. There's a ton of actions you could do. You could dash, which eats up your entire round, and you double your move. You can move, which is just a move.
So you get a movement and an action on your turn.
You can perform a melee attack, a ranged attack, take cover behind a solid object, imposing a bane on ranged attacks at you, pick up an item, equip, unequip armor and helmets. Suits of armor and helmets protect you from damage, but also restrict your movement. You can perform first aid. The healing skill is used to save life of someone, so you get free healing. Break the door down. You could just kick in the door, pick a lock, use an item.
Free healing, actually. It's you have to make a skill check.
Yes, but yeah, that's what I mean.
Like, yeah, but that's your turn. Is like you patching somebody up.
Yeah. Break the door down, cast a spell, activate abilities from like an innate, like your profession or an innate ability,
or use an item.
Use an item. Pick a lock. Picking a lock requires a sleight of hand roll. Doing so without lockpicks gives you a bean. So they tell you right away. Now they have reactions. I skipped over this. It's an action you can do. It's parry and dodge.
Yes.
These are reactions, like parrying and dodge attacks, and make free attacks. So this uses up your turn in the round, which means you can't perform anything else. But so you can parry. Both melee and ranged attacks can be parried, but the latter requires a shield. So you have to like put your shield in the way. Parrying is a reaction that takes place outside your turn and replaces your regular action in a round. Dodge is just a reaction, so you just kind of jump out the way of a melee or ranged attack.
It also eats your action.
It eats your action.
Yeah.
So
there's reasons why you can parry certain things and you can dodge certain things, and there's reasons to do either one. We'll get into that in a second.
Drawing a weapon is a free action. Changing positions, throw yourself on the ground or get up is a free action. Drop an item is a free action. You could yell is a free action, like talking.
I love the fact that it says that in any one of your in-hand weapons, you could just pull out and attack it with it. There's no action involved. Which hand do I have? No, it's just like, oh, my longsword's on my back. Whap.
Yep, as long as it's part of your at-hand weapons, you're fine.
And you can have up to 3 of those, I think.
Yep. Persuade is an interesting free action. You can encourage a player with 0 hit points to rally. That one's fun.
Yes.
So you could force players to keep it moving,
keep fighting. But they're still dying if they're at 0. So I read the persuade rules. The person is still dying, so it's akin to 5th edition where you make dying checks, and if you fail 3 you die, and if you succeeded 3 you live. Actually in this game you actually heal a little bit of health. But someone can persuade you to keep fighting even though you're still making those dying checks. You're still up there like, I'm still fighting.
Yeah, you're tired. You're just kind of heaving, hoeing, and that's it. Then you have your movement. So dash, again, that's your action in the round. You can move twice as far. Stand or crouch, you can drop to the ground and get up as part of your movement. It's a free action, part of your movement, which I love. Thank you. Stop changing it. Passing through a closed but unlocked door costs half your movement. So if you get to a door and it's unlocked, you can
just open it. Opening it costs you half the movement. Movement.
Which is a cool concept because we've all played where players are like running from enemies and they close the door, and in other games it just says you can kind of just open and keep moving. I like how they switched it where like other games are like, oh, standing from prone is half your movement, but here they were like, nah, it's cool, you could just stand up and keep it moving. But they were like, yo, if a door is shut, it's gonna take you a second, which is really cool because it changes the flow of a chase scene, you know?
Yeah.
And then enemies, you cannot pass a standing enemy who wants to stop you. A humanoid creature can block a size of 2 by 2 meters. Most monsters can block larger areas. To move past an enemy who is blocking your way, you must down them. Friendlies, you can go through.
There is technically a thing we call, like, it's not called attack of opportunity, but it's very much akin thing about attack of opportunity that many enemies can do to you. It's actually interesting.
Yeah. Flipping the initiative cards once you've had your turn, you can flip it over so that everyone understands what you've done, right?
And also to know is that if you use your reaction and you flip your card off your turn, so like I go at a 5, but I use my reaction to block an attack, I flip my card over so I know that I'm not going to go at 5 because I already used my reaction.
Yeah. Free attack, and this is the monster one, enemies. It's called free attack. If you're standing within 2 meters of an enemy and then move away from them, you must make a mobility roll. The roll does not count as an action, but if it fails, the enemy immediately gets to perform an additional melee attack against you as a free action, as a free attack. The free attack does not count as an action and can neither be parried nor dodged.
You just take the damage.
You just kind of have to eat it. Melee combat, it's kind of very simple. There are grids. They talk about grids and stuff like that. Some weapons have a strength requirement. Damage bonus is determined by your score in the attribute on which you're using. So agility for knives, strength for other melees.
Yeah, then agility for, like, I think agility-based weapons.
Agility-based weapons, yeah.
So they didn't go into, like, what stat gives you what dice, but
no,
that'll be in the full game. But like I said, the pre-gens already have all this math worked out, and it's all on the character sheet.
Yeah. Grip. This is an interesting fact. Weapons require either one or two hands to use. The strength requirement of a one-handed weapon decreases by 3 if you hold it with both hands.
So there's a benefit of holding a one-handed weapon in two hands. Is that maybe you're not strong enough to wield it in one hand, but you are strong enough to wield that, longsword in two hands and just go whapping people.
Yeah. And then they talk about if you roll a dragon, natural 1, when you attack, you score a crit hit. That means the dragon roll is required to parry or dodge the attack, and that you may choose one of the following effects. Your weapon inflicts double damage, excluding the damage bonus. Roll twice as many dice as normal. Add them up. And for example, if you strike with a broadsword, 2d6, and then have damage bonus d4, the damage from a crit hit is 4d6 plus d4.
Yeah, so you're just doubling the weapon dice.
Yeah. You can take immediately a secondary attack, the same or another enemy within 2 meters. This is considered a free action. Armor has no effect against the attack as it finds gaps or weak spots. The effect can only be chosen if the attack deals precision piercing damage. Yeah. And then there's an optional rule for long weapons. An attack with a weapon that features long, such as a spear or a lance, can hit enemies 4 meters away or 2 squares. Which again, if they're talking squares, they should have just left it as squares.
Yeah, that's my thing.
Yeah. With such a weapon, it's also possible to attack past a friendly combatant and hit enemies on the other side of that person. I don't understand why that's in a green box.
Which one?
Long weapons. It's on page 14. It doesn't make sense because that's supposed to be an optional rule. So now you're saying you can't fight past your ally if you're not doing that?
So meaning that if I'm standing behind a friendly,
you couldn't.
Normally, even if I had a long weapon, normally I wouldn't be able to stab past them.
Doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Yet again, I think a lot of the optional rules here are optional unnecessarily.
Yeah. Because, like, we all understand, right? Like, if I'm fighting and I'm using my shield to guard the hallway, and I got Steve behind, I've actually been in these HEMA fights or the historical European martial arts where you fight with longswords and actual medieval weapons, where I've had shield and I've been using a shield because I lost my weapon because I dropped it or it got knocked out of my hand. I've had someone behind me with a long weapon just stabbing over my shoulder to give me cover, and we are able to push. That's an actual military tactic that was used.
I guess from a simplicity standpoint, not have to worry about it. Just be for melee, you have to be adjacent. Period. End of story. I guess from trying to keep the rules to a minimum, and you only have to introduce the rules you want to introduce. So maybe that's the direction that they were kind of heading towards this. Well, I mean, Jared and I have been playing D&D and other role-playing games for so long that stuff like that is normal, not commonplace. Having a long way, if I have a spear, of course I can stand over my friend to stab that person in the chest.
Yeah.
But maybe for newer players who are just coming in and never played a role-playing game, that maybe that might be one rule too many.
Yeah, and who's never been in a historical medieval fight?
Yeah.
They might not know. Which ironically is weird because the historical medieval fighting is huge in Europe. So you would think more people would be exposed to it than in America.
Yeah, but I think there's also trying to make it a global market.
Whatever.
Yeah.
I'm so mad at
I
it.
like the fact that I originally had resistance about that third effect where the armor has no effect against the attack, but only if it's piercing. And I'm like, why? Why is that only piercing? Well, why would I not always take a piercing weapon? And then I was reading on when talking about, so anytime that you parry with a weapon or you parry with a shield, the rule state is you damage the weapon instead, or you damage the shield instead. So your shield can break, your sword can break. Piercing weapons never damage shields and weapons because if you actually think about it, what is a piercing weapon designed to do? It's designed to poke, right? Yeah. Well, am I going to poke a sword? It's not going to do anything. If I'm going to poke that shield, this is going to glance right off. So it makes logical sense that piercing weapons will be able to find that chink in the armor. But the drawback to it is that I will never break your shield or I'll never break your weapon while using those weapons. So this is why that they do have that benefit, but on the other side, they do have a detriment along with them.
Oh, okay. So we're going to add that rule in, but stabbing over my friend's shoulder is one too far. I'm just... Sorry.
Well, damage types, technically damage types were also a variant rule, so you can just decide to ignore it.
You're not ignoring it. No one's ignoring that variant rule. Listen, I don't care who you are. We've all played D&D. We've all played like if you're watching this, you've played D&D. You've been in the culture of tabletop role-playing systems, right? And you understand this piercing, slashing, bludgeoning, and one of the three happen, right? So you know it, right? Like I just said it. You saw it in your head. You instantly flashed dagger for piercing, longsword for slashing, club for bludgeoning. It just flashed before your eyes because you saw it, you knew what it was. Hammer for bludgeoning, right? So why make that a variant rule? We've all been there. We all know what it is. Also, it's freaking awesome, right? How awesome is the scene where you take the hammer, you smash the enemy, and the GM's like, well, they parried with their shield, and you're like, nope, I destroyed that shield. Because I just did that enough damage to destroy that enemy shield, and it shatters away. You know, that's such an awesome cinematic to be as a GM to roleplay, and to kind of remove that from the. And Steve's gonna make my fun go away. Go ahead, Steve.
No. Go ahead. Continue.
Well, no, that's like a very awesome cinematic, and that makes you feel awesome as a player. But enemy shields are immune to that because they blah 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 blah. Go ahead, say it.
No, I was just going to say that, well, I don't know if enemies actually hold shields, but the cool thing about it is like we play, you know, obviously we play Pathfinder 2nd edition and shields have hit points. So I got to minus the hardness. You did 10 points. I minus 5 points. So I take the 5 points with the shield. Oh my God, this has been a while. Yeah. Right. Here's how parrying works. And this is awesome. If you succeed at parrying, you take no damage, period. You block the entire attack. If the damage that the person still rolls damage, if the damage exceeds my weapon's durability, which my weapon will have a listed durability, or my shield will have a listed durability, if it exceeds that, my weapon is broken, and now I have disadvantage or I have a bane on that weapon. Meaning every time I use that weapon for anything, another parry, or I go to stab with it or do anything with this weapon, I now roll at I roll the bane, the disadvantage, I take the higher of the two results, which is the worst of the two results. Simple. Super easy. Super simple. Yeah, that's how parrying works. Durability, if it block succeeds, it does it. Optional rule, if you roll a dragon while parrying, you immediately perform a counterattack on your opponent, an automatic hit with your weapon that cannot be dodged or parried. This does not apply if the attack rolled a dragon as well. They obviously negate each other. In that case, you need a dragon just to block and do not counter the parry. That's a cool feature. I think I would let that go. I think it would have to see, but I think that's cool. This is one of the first variant rules that I'm like, I'm not sure about that. Yeah. Right. I'm like, I'd have to see the math on it. Yeah. I need to like see combat and how combat works. Yeah. For me to make an argument for that rule, because it sounds like a cool. One. What? It is only on a 1. It is only on a 1. Yeah, it is a crit. It is a crit roll. So, and they do say if the attacker crit and you crit, you can't do it. Yeah, the idea is that if they crit you, if they roll a 1 or a dragon on you, you have to roll a 1 even to be able to block it or dodge it. So it's an interesting effect. Yeah. Besides that, it is a 1. It's very low.
I mean, we're already switching it up on my players, right? Like, so if I bring this to my table, I'm already forcing my players to think backwards, right?
True.
To think low. I want to give them as much stuff to be hyped. I want this. I want the players to love this as much as I love it, right? Because if I'm bringing something to the table, so I want to give them as many options or opportunities to enjoy something. But again, this is the first variant rule where I'm like, maybe.
Yeah, not quite sure.
Yeah.
Dodging is basically the same as parrying, except that you're not using an object to get them away. You have to announce that you're dodging when the attack comes in before you know whether you hit or not. You have to make a mobility check. On a success, you just you dodge right out of the way. On a failure, you get hit.
Yeah. So reaction dodging is reaction, and like parrying, you have to make a check. Movement, whether you attempt to dodge, succeed, or fails, you always fall to the ground and cannot get up until your next turn. On a success dodge, you may, if you want, move up to 2 meters in any direction. This movement does not give anyone a free attack. So this is dodging is the only way to move away from an enemy without getting that enemy's reaction.
Yep. Or moving away and succeeding on your mobility check.
Yeah. This movement does not. Yeah. Monsters, as a rule, monster attacks can be dodged unless specified otherwise.
Here's the thing about parrying. As a rule, monster attacks cannot be parried unless otherwise stated. So parrying is much less likely versus monsters. Maybe other NPCs and other things that may be attacking you. That's okay. But monsters generally can't be parried unless it's specially exempt that you're allowed to. But on the other side is monsters can typically be dodged unless it's stated you can't. Yeah.
Now we are in, that was all melee. So all that gibberish was melee. Woo! We got past it. That was heavy. Ranged combat is very simple. We covered cover, right? That's an action. It gives Bane to someone shooting at you. So that's dope. Damage, if you hit with the weapon determines the damage die you use. The damage can be increased by damage bonuses and rolling a dragon. And is decreased by the armor. Same thing as melee. Yep. Damage bonus. Your damage bonus from a weapon is based on your agility. Done. So you always get, like 5th edition, every time you hit with a ranged weapon, you always get to add your agility your agility damage to that. If you
have an agility bonus damage die, they don't always get it.
That's true. Ranged. So, additionally, roll a marksman for all ranged attack, including throwing weapons, and you have to be 1 square away from an enemy to shoot. If
can't
you
be
are
next
not,
to them.
You can't. You achieve a Bane.
Yeah, you get a Bane.
Yeah,
that's right. Sorry.
All right. Here's the important ones. 2 variant rules: parry and dodge. Parrying a ranged attack requires a shield. It works the same way as in close combat, except that rolling a dragon does not give you a counter attack. That would be hysterical.
You throw it back at him.
Yeah, you ricochet it off your shield. Yeah. You cannot dodge range attacks just like melee attacks. You can dodge. Yeah. And block line of sight. Hitting someone with the ranged attack requires a clear line of sight. You can shoot past friendly combatants, but an enemy standing in the way blocks your line of sight, makes it impossible to shoot targets behind them. I wouldn't say impossible. I would give you a Bane. That's my variant on that variant.
Yeah.
I would say, listen, if you're trying to shoot the goblin all the way in the back, the goblin mage, and you have a whole mess of goblins in front of you, I'm gonna be like, that's a Bane.
Okay.
I think that's a fair call as a GM. I think most people would be like, yeah, I can see that. Rolling a dragon or crit, you get, again, this one, unlike melee, which had 3 options, ranged has 2 options. The double is
Doubling
standard.
Dice. Yep.
Double the dice. Or armor has no effect against attack. And it only works on piercing damage. This is probably the most likeliest one because of arrows. Arrow tips would be piercing.
Yeah.
But if you're throwing a hammer, because remember, throwing weapons. So if you're throwing a hammer, you're throwing rocks, you're shoe.
Who throws a shoe, really?
My grandmother was nasty with the chancleta. She would just sniper rifle, just done. Baby asleep. That's how you got taken out. All right, super fast. Damage is easy. Armor, what does armor do for you? Let me tell you what armor does for you. Armor effectiveness is determined by its armor rating. Whenever you take damage from a physical attack, subtract the armor rating from the damage. So if you have armor rating, right, of like 5 and someone hits you for 10, you take 5. Super simple. Helmet Helmets get added on to your armor rating. So I put a helmet on, I get more armor. Pretty awesome.
But armor and helmets can reduce your mobility and make you take minuses or banes on skill checks, and also could let like certain actions you doesn't let you take anymore, depending on the armor.
Yeah, damage types in armor. An optional rule for damage. Page 15 is used. The following rules apply. Leather and studded armor gains a +2 to their armor rating against bludgeoning. Chainmail gets a +2 against slashing. This is old school, old school. This is from old school, like chainmail, like actual like.
Fun enough, the Pathfinder uses the system.
Yeah,
it's second edition.
Yeah, so this is old school. This is an old school system. That's old school. So if you're old school and you like old school stuff, that's kind of your jam, your bread and butter right there. I'm cool with it. It'd be hard for newer players. I wouldn't do it right away. This would be like second campaign. Now we're gonna start to add that in.
I was gonna say the same thing. This is adding a little extra complication, which I think is a little unnecessary.
Yeah, especially for this system as we see it right now. Cool. Hit points, death. If you reach 0, you drop to the ground and risk dying. At this point, safest to stay put and wait for help. Just stop. Death
Just stop
roll.
doing things.
Death roll. We explained what this is. You have to make a roll against your Constitution attribute. The death roll can be pushed if that optional rule is used. We already agreed to that. Record how many death rolls you make on your character sheet. After 3 successful death rolls, you recover D6 hit points and do not need to make another roll. After 3 fails, you're dead. You bleed out. Rolling a dragon counts for 2. Rolling a demon counts for 2 failures. Simple. We've seen this in 5th edition.
Yeah.
You're doing death saves for 5th edition. It's very simple. We know what's going on.
We already talked about rally. Going back to the 5th edition dying rules. Taking damage adds a death save, adds a failure. Rally we talked about. Someone makes a persuade check. You heal a little bit. Actually, no, you don't heal a little bit. You're able to stand up and do stuff while still dying.
Yeah. Saving a life. When you have 0 hit points and another person can save your life with a successful healing roll, that counts as their action. If the roll succeeds, you stop making death saves and you recover a D6. You cannot heal yourself in this way, even if you rally. Multiple attempts are allowed on this, but you can't, like, additional healing rolls have no effect once you are no longer at 0 hit points. So that's cool. Insta death. You don't record negative hit points, but if a single attack reduces your hit points equal to your full hit point amount, you explode. Yeah,
basically.
Dead.
Or that troll throws that giant boulder, you just get squished.
That's it. 0 hit points for NPCs. So I like this. I like this that they said this. Hey, listen, when an NPC reaches 0, there are no death saves. The GM decides what happens.
Yeah,
and I love that.
NPCs, if they want them dead, they're dead. If they want them alive, they just knocked out.
They're just knocked out. Fine. Conditions. We talked about this already. What conditions do, how many conditions you can have, healing conditions, how it works. Healing, resting. We kind
of went over this as well before.
Yeah. A stretch, you can heal D6 or 2D6 if someone else is tending to you and succeeds with a healing roll. So stretch, remember that's like 15 seconds. 15 minutes.
15 minutes, yeah.
The caregiver sadly cannot rest. So if I try to heal Steve, I cannot rest during that period.
Yep.
During a stretch rest, you can also recover 2d6 willpower and heal off a condition. A shift rest heals everything.
It's a big heal. You're at 1 hit point. You have 9,000 conditions, and then you wake up 6 hours later and you're fine.
It's 15 hours actually in this.
No, it's 6.
No, it's a lot more.
No,
it's like a half a day.
Hold on. We're gonna find
out an argument. I did it.
Here it is. Page 5. Shift rest 6 hours.
Sorry. For some reason, you know what? Because it says 15 kilometers.
Oh, yeah.
In my head, I just started adding numbers together. I was like, yeah, it's like 39 hours.
So the cool thing is, if for some reason that your shift rest, your long rest, is interrupted, you're treated as having a stretch rest.
Yeah.
So you do get the benefits of a short rest if your long rest is interrupted.
Yeah. Other hazards: falling. Inflicts D6 bludgeoning damage for each meter after the first 3. So you get free 3 meters, and then that's it. A successful mobility roll reduces the number of D6s by half. Armor does not protect against that. I would have to say it depends on how far you're falling. Yeah. Right? Like, I don't give an F if you're falling out. Like, if you fall out of a plane, you need to come up with some bullshit. or like a hot air balloon, right? Like there needs to be some kind of bullshit at that point.
There are poisons in the game. We can kind of skip over the poisons. We don't actually have to go over that. There's different types of poisons, sleeping, lethal, and yeah.
They talk about darkness,
I like the fear.
torches, and now they talk about fear. So this is my question. Fear is not scared. Let's understand that. Feared is feared. There are many horrifying beasts lurking in the ruins and forest of Dragonbane. Such creatures can perform so-called fear attacks. Fear attacks can also be triggered by magic and other terrifying experiences, such as seeing your friend fall out of a tree and explode into goo. When struck by fear, you must immediately make a roll against your base willpower attribute. The roll can be pushed and does not count as an action. Particularly frightening events can give you a bane on the roll. If the roll fails, you must roll on the fear table. It's a D8 fear. You have enfeebled, shaken, panting, pale, scream, rage, paralyzed, and wild panic is my favorite one. You just lose your mind.
So they all give you, some of them give you conditions, some of them give you some status effect you have to deal with, like some of them make you lose willpower, some of them make you just flee uncontrollably. So each one of these, it's kind of interesting that they have this little chart here. I actually really like this chart.
It was cool. I could see if this becomes popular and kind of gets mainstream, I could see a lot of people adding to the fear table, making a D100 or more like a D20.
I would say even a D12 would just add just enough variety.
Yeah, a D12 would be nice. Now you get to page 20. Monsters have speed. Waiting. If a player swipes initiative cards with a monster, the player character can choose one of the monster's cards. Monsters themselves never wait. So monsters can never switch with players. Players can switch with monsters.
Correct.
That's all you need to know. All right. Monsters can move. Monster attacks. A monster always uses monster attacks when it attacks. Each monster has a unique set of monster attacks. The GM rolls or chooses an attack from the table. Monsters never roll dice to hit their target. Monster attacks succeed automatically. As a rule, a monster attack can be dodged but not parried. Exceptions to this rule are stated under the monster. Performing a monster attack counts as an action. Conditions. Monsters' attacks can inflict conditions on players. If a player gains a condition they already have, the player then has to, again, you can't have two of the same conditions.
Yeah, the player picks something else.
Yeah. Repeat attacks. A monster never makes the same attack twice in a row. Done. If the GM rolls the same monster attack twice, the second roll changes to a higher step on the table. And me and Steve talked about this. We saw something similar to this monster table and how they attack
in Viking Death Squad. Yeah. So let me look up. I actually was trying to avoid showing. They give a little bit of like a sample adventure in here. I was going to try to avoid showing it because, I want people to be surprised if they're going to run this. But let me just see if I can find a monster in here.
The Grub.
What page? Oh, here, monster attacks. There we go. The Death Knight.
Oh.
So here we go.
Hard.
I just find the first one I could find.
Oh, because it's big. It's huge. Yeah.
So anytime this monster attacks, it rolls a D6. So then it picks one of those are one of the attacks. So obviously, if I picked power, I rolled a 1, I'm going to get power strike and I'm going to do this nasty attack. But say I go again during the turn, I rolled a 1 again, it'll actually push it to a 2. And all the way, including this, if I roll a 6 and I roll a 6 again, it'll push it back to the 1. It'll loop it back around and so you'll never do the same attack 2 times in a row, which is nice. It gives a nice variety. And
don't forget, you don't have to take the chart. You don't have to roll on the chart. You could say, okay, he's going to use power strike and then paralyzing cold. Yeah. But you can't say power strike. That's the rule.
Yeah, that's the rule.
And then the armor rating is 6 and the hit points is 38. That's basic understanding. A movement of 10. So you kind of understand what that is. And a speed of 2.
Now that's 10. I'm assuming that's in meters. That's not squares. So that's 10 meters. So that's 5 squares.
That's 5 squares.
So that's about average movement, I would assume. That's so 30. Monsters can have skills, but they're mainly used for outside of combat or for passive things. Melee combat, the monsters can dodge if it has the skill level, a mobility. And if it's carrying a weapon, it can parry. It does have weak spots. Piercing attack can find a gap in a weak spot in a monster's natural armor, just like a humanoid. They have natural armor resistance. Yeah, this is normal stuff. Persuasion. Monsters are immune to persuasion skill unless otherwise stated. So you can't talk down the monster. You can't talk down that giant spider that's on my screen right now. You can't do
love
it.
that giant spider. There's a bunch of goblins about to get eaten, by the way.
Yep.
Because that giant spider ate a bunch of their friends just before. And that thing is so horrific. Like, I'm not a big fan of spiders.
That's like the Lord of the Rings spider.
That's the Lord of the Rings spider. Yeah, that's a Hobbit spider. We don't like those. And we talk about magic, and magic is important. There are multiple schools of magic.
Picture right here.
There's 3 schools of magic described in the core game: animism, elementalism, and mentalism. Each school has separate skills, which is cool, and that's what you want to see. Basically, what you're looking at is primal, arcane, and occult.
Yeah,
mentalism.
You can, yeah, you can call it. Well, let's just call them what they are. In this game, it's mentalism, animalism, and
elemental.
Elementalism. Yeah.
Yeah. Willpower points is how you cast power from the body. If you're running low on willpower, you can draw from your body, but this is harmful. You start to hurt yourself.
Yes.
Roll a die of your choice before casting a spell. The result indicates how many willpower points you gain and can use straight away, but you also take the same amount of damage in hit points, and that's awesome as a caster.
I love
because you're like, oh, it's so dope.
It's like, the power. And here's the cool thing. If this causes you to go down, your spell fires first, and then you go down. Yep. How about the epic last hurrah of that fireball leaving your body as you explode?
Yeah, you're just like, guys, this is my time to shine. I'm
going out my way.
Yeah. And you're just like, I'm gonna roll a D20. Wait, what? Yes, that's how many willpower points I want. Because it says it right there. You can do a D20. They literally say
you
D20.
can D4 up to D20.
Yep.
Iron is like, it's like the Fey Iron. Iron is anti-magic.
Yep,
which
iron is naturally
cool.
anti-magic. So if you know anything about Western folklore, most of it came from Celtic and Norse. So Sweden is part, like the Swedish folklore. That's how you get the trolls, the 3 billy goat gruff. Much of that stuff, the whole iron keeping, you have the dark forest, tooth fairies and stuff like that. It's all from like that general area. And they very much kind of keep that flavor over, which I really love. Because if you're a fan of Vaesen, which is another European kind of tabletop role-playing game, about monsters, but you're more like monster hunters. I think like BPRD from Hellboy. Like silver hurts werewolves. Iron is anti-magic. That's kind of keeps the same thing. I love that. So magic is called magic tricks.
Magic tricks are kind of like your cantrips. They're like minor spells, but they only cost 1 point to use. And then you have actual spells. Yeah. And so they cost 2 points per level. Yeah. Yes. For the big spells, it's 2 points per level. For the tricks, it's always 1 point. There's no increasing that.
Yeah. The power ranges from 1 to 3. So understand that casting a spell costs 2 willpower per level. So a 3 level will cost 6. Just basic math. Requirements: word, you have to chant; gesture, you have to move your hands; focus, you need an item or something; ingredients, you need a component. Time consumption. Otherwise stated, casting a spell always counts as an action in combat. However, there are reaction spells which are performed outside of combat. Unlike other reactions in combat, such as parrying and dodge, reaction spells do not replace your regular action in the round. This means you can cast as many of them as you want if you have enough willpower and hit points, because just you know what's going to happen.
Area effect shapes like spheres, beams, cones, circles, and walls. This is for people who played RPGs. This is nothing new. It's just more grandly defined each one. And they give you the 6 spells. They give you 3 tricks, and they give you 3 full-on spells. And each spell kind of explains how they can be increased or boosted up.
So failure, dragon, and demons. Rolling a dragon when you cast a spell creates a critical effect. The damage or the range is double. The spell doesn't consume any willpower. You can immediately cast another, but get a penalty on the roll. So you can like cast 2 spells, like fireball, but you get a penalty on the roll. They don't say what penalty is.
That's probably after the jam, or it could be a bane.
I'm going to assume it's a bane. I would just say bane. I would say probably a bane. Rolling a demon, the spell fails and you can't push the roll.
Yeah.
which is fine. They've already said that. Then I don't know if you see this artwork, but look at that effing fire goddess down there. Just all that fire. So you have gust of wind, fireball, and pillar, which is cool. You have your earth, like earth, wind, fire, and then you have ignite, puff of smoke, and heat and chill, which are your cantrips. If you've ever played older editions of like D&D, AD&D, that's what cantrips used to be. They weren't like actual damaging spells. It was like, I'm going to make the air smell like farts.
It even says, impressive puff of smoke erupts around you, very useful for dramatic entrances.
Yeah, that's it.
I love that.
It's amazing. It's very silly. You just be like, fart smoke, go. People are like, wait, what? Yep, that's it. Just fart smoke. All right, so now we're gonna scroll down.
So this is the adventure, the Rittermound. Like I said, you can go read this at your leisure. But now we're gonna get into the characters, the pre-generated characters. So this is the wizard Archmaster Aodan.
So give me a moment. I would like to say this. This is the most important thing. You will now get to see the two greatest fantasy races ever in the history. These are core races or kin. So when you get the game, these are raw rules as written in the game kin, and it's amazing. All right, so you have your standard wizard. They're an elementalist. Their age is old, and I love a lot of this because it's written as if a real person wrote it. They're old. They're human. They're a wizard. They're an elementalist. I love and fear fire. That's amazing.
I love that.
It's basically what a real player would write, like when you sat down, right? The memento, a worn diary full of your experiences and your discoveries. Very standard, right? So again, we don't know how characters are created. So these are numbers that we are seeing, but we don't know how they got these numbers, right?
I can fathom some of this numbers, right? So if you look at axes from the character here, it's half of his strength.
Yeah.
You look, brawling is also half of his strength. So a lot of these skills will probably start with half of your number, probably either rounded up or down, and then you probably have a set number of skill points you can add into or maybe your class gives you points on the certain like healing and learning and or whatever.
Yeah, because you see, like they have like survival is a 14, so is it half your will? Like we don't know what matches.
Yeah, so we don't know how exactly some of these numbers came about.
So it's their int. You see, their int is 17, but they have a 14. So it's like, we don't know how they got the numbers.
Yeah, probably the higher numbers, you don't get as much on move of skills when you get to the higher numbers, because otherwise you'd have a 17 or 18 strength or even like a 19 willpower here, and that kind of just blows up the numbers for the skills. So they may have like a decreasing, like as you get a higher stat, your how many skill points you get lowers. Yeah, so it's like a point buy system or something like that.
It could be a point buy system.
Yeah, but as I said, we're not sure yet. But obviously here, this is the only character that casts magic. So they have an elementalism skill of a 14. They have 19 willpower points, so they have a lot of points to pump into those abilities. They have hit points. They're wearing no armor. They only have a staff as their only weapon.
Yep, their staff is a D8, and they have a 50-50 shot of hitting with it because they have a 10 on blunt weapons.
Yep.
So if the wizard's swinging that staff, good luck.
So we see here on the abilities and spells, they have all the spells. So they have all 6 spells, but they also have adaptive and magic. So we don't know what those mean yet. And also, by the way, look at the character sheet. The character sheet's lovely designed. Right below all your stats, do you have the condition associated with that stat?
Yep.
You check off that box. Are you a dirty wizard? You check off the dirty.
I'm a dirty wizard. That's my next character.
You check that little box off.
Wizard.
Had to be done.
That's Jeff's next wizard, by the way.
The dirty wizard. So you just check that box just to let you know that you have that condition. So it reminds you that when you're making those checks, you have a Bane.
Yeah.
But this is the wizard. He looks powerful.
It's a dope character sheet. I like the name is right there. It's the most important part of your character is who you are, and then you have this really nice way of the stats, right? That's a dragon and that's a demon face. Like that's what you're looking at. You know your inventory, your carrying
you're talking about the stats. I'm sorry.
Yeah, where the stats are. It's a dragon and demon face. You have your inventory, it's 5. We know what it is. Tiny items, there's a little box with all the tiny items, chalk, whatever. You know, Eye of Newt. Clearly, they have no armor, helmet, shield. And then under it, it talks about who this person is. And now we know what adaptive is and magi is.
Yes. So these are those things where adaptive, I believe, it says humans are adaptable, so they get this benefit when you're rolling a skill. You choose to make a roll with another skill of your choice. So basically, lets you swap a skill for another skill. But the GM's got to okay with the fact that how you're switching it.
You can't be like, all right, I'm gonna sneak, but I'm gonna use my I'm gonna use sneaking, but instead I'm gonna use my learning, and it's like make sense.
Yeah. It costs you 3 points to do this, so this is where those abilities that everyone gets these. You get to use that, and then the magi. This is as a wizard, so they may be either classes or archetypes. So this is your profession. So there's a profession as a wizard. You can use magic, and that's how you get the ability to use magic. So this one really doesn't really cost willpower points directly, but casting magic does.
It varies, yeah. Next, you have your adult elf hunter. So your standard Orla Moonsilver. I love that. Their abilities: inner peace, animal kinship. You know, the minions of darkness will die by my arrow. I like that. Very standard.
Now, her memento is a fang from a troll that slew your sister.
That's rough. Now you see marksman, right? She has a 14. I'm assuming it's a she. It sounds like a she. Actually, I know it's a she because the picture is a female. It's presenting as female.
So you notice, we're going to jump back to the wizard for a second. If you look at the bottom, there was nothing filled out for shield, helmet, or armor. This person's not wearing any armor. Now we're going to go down to the Orla. Orla is wearing leather armor. She has an armor rating of 1. So every time she takes damage, it's going to be reduced by 1. But she doesn't have any negatives for the negatives would actually be listed there. She has no negatives for wearing leather armor. Leather armor is light enough that she can wear it without any detriment.
Yep. And now you see she has 14 in knives and 14 in marksmanship. So whenever they roll, they have to roll under a 14 for knife and under a 14 for marksmanship. They have a knife and a longbow, and you can see the durability on knife is 3. So now we start to see what's going on. And they have another feature, subtle. So that's a thing we don't know what that is.
Yeah.
We don't have the books, but their willpower is 10 standard, and the hit points are 15. Obviously, a more fightery class.
Yeah.
Now Orla, they tell you about who this person is. Again, inner peace. As an elf, you can meditate deeply during a stretch. You heal an additional D6 hit points and D6 willpower, and can recover from an additional condition. But you're unresponsive and can't be woken up.
Yep, you're in a coma.
You coma yourself.
But this doesn't cost you willpower.
No,
it's just something that you can choose to do. You can enter your trance. Animal kinship, on the other hand, is something that costs you willpower, and you basically can gain an animal companion.
Yeah, you activate your survival, and you can kind of get like a little friend, a squirrel, whatever you know. Next up,
I like the fact that when the animal kinship is that it specifically says the thing will stay by you and be loyal to you so long as you stay in its natural habitat. And once you leave its natural habitat, it's just like, screw you, this is my home.
Bro, I have a question for you. Look at this elf. Look at her left hip. What is she carrying? A whole chicken.
Hey, she's hungry. She's not a vegetarian.
Fair enough. See, they're breaking molds. All those elves eating fancy, like, flowery foods. Nope.
Chicken.
Done. Now, this character's not going to be cool with the next character we look at, because the next character is the dopest character in existence, period. I don't care. There will never be a better fantasy character other than this character.
Kin Mallard. I'll give you a hint of what this character is.
Their profession is a knight. Their motivation is I seek honor and fame and fortune. Mark Ander of Half Bay. Dope name. That's a cool knightly name.
Yeah.
Now, here is the first time we see Also on or
yeah. Actually, we're gonna go back. We see
bonus.
a damage bonus of D4 for strength because she had a 13 strength, and a D6 for agility because she had a 17 agility. So that's where that extra damage is going to come from when you make those attacks with whatever weapon. Yep. We flip over to
Mallard.
Mankandar of Half Bay, and he only has a D4 for the strength because his strength is a 16, but not high enough agility. This is why I said that depending on your stat, you may or may not get an agility bonus because the wizard did not have any bonuses to damage.
No bad. Nope.
They get magic. Memento, they don't need it.
So this is cool. The memento is a fine pipe made of black horn, a gift from your father. That's cool. That's a cool thing. I would have something like that. I would have. They have armor plate, and then under it says gives a bane rolls for mobility and sneaking. The wearer cannot dash.
This is where that armor has a benefit of like, look, every time I take damage, I'm going to ignore 6 points of that damage because my armor is just tough. But I'm slow. I can't really make those mobility checks, and I can't dash. It means I can't spend my whole turn moving.
Yes. Next up, you have the shield. The durability is 12, and it's a small shield. So that tells you bigger shield will probably have higher durability.
Yeah.
Now, interesting, again, weapons, we don't know what it is, but slashing and toppling. For the battle axe.
That might tell me that you can possibly knock somebody over with it.
Down.
Yeah. So short is slashing or piercing, so you can choose
which one.
So say you know that the person's blocking with the shield a lot, you're going to want to switch to slashing so to try to break their shield.
Yeah. Their abilities and spells, they're ill-tempered and protector. Obviously, that comes from their knightly capabilities. Now let's...
The best character ever.
Best character, Angry Duck. Angry Duck on full armor. Best character, period. I want to play this character so bad. I don't even care about anything. Angry Duck. So ill-tempered, it's a willpower 3. Mallards tend to have a choleric temper. You can activate this ability when you push a roll and choose angry as your condition.
Yes.
You then get a boon to the reroll. Note that pushing roll is an optional rule. If you have Mockander in the group, you should use this rule.
Yeah.
I love it. Just says do it.
Just like if you get angry, you get a boon. He's stronger when he's angry.
Yeah, he's just and now you'll see Protector is willpower 3, and this character does have a high willpower of 14.
Yeah.
As a knight, you don't hesitate to take a hit for your friends. If you and one more of your player characters are in the same area, 2 meters of each other, and the enemy tries to attack one of the others, you can activate this ability to force the enemy to attack you instead. Using this ability can be done out of turn. It does not count as an action. Remember, they talked about those reactions.
Yeah, this is not a reaction. It just costs 3 willpower points. And like I said, these are 2 different things that you can use willpower on. This character has no spells, but has a pretty sizable willpower pool of 14.
They're telling you something.
It's it. Use your abilities.
Yeah, they're telling you like, yo, do it. All right. Next up is
Cassandra the Bold.
Yeah, Cassandra the Bold. Halfling, age young. What did the Mallard have as an age? Adult. Just an adult. Profession thief. I'm up for anything, and the more dangerous, the better. Love it. This one, they went full thief, high agility, high intelligence, high willpower, and decent con. Hard to catch and backstabbing, right? Armor, they have the leather. A treasure map you quote unquote found. That's amazing.
Found.
Yes. And dagger, again, subtle, slashing, and piercing. So daggers let you kind of change it up. And they have throwing knives. They also get a damage bonus, a d6 on agility stuff. So they're kind of telling you what you're going to be doing.
You also notice that like all the other characters, like Mallard, the Mallard here only had 2 items out of their capacity of 8. And even the Ranger had a capacity of 7, only had 4 items. But the Rogue has maxed out their inventory space. They have the 4 items: rope, fire and tinder, flint and tinder, torches, and lockpicks. That's all the stuff they need to be able to break into those tombs and steal all that stuff.
Yeah. And additionally, durability on the weapons. If you look at the Mallard character, their durability on the battle axe is a 6, and the short sword is a 9. On this one, the durability on the dagger is a 6. So I wonder if that's all in a similar category.
It's possible.
And that they would just say durability is like that. So hard to catch is 3 willpower. Halflings are hard to catch. You can activate this ability when you dodge an attack. getting a boon to the mobility roll. That's awesome, right? Backstabbing is 3 willpower. You can activate this ability when you roll for sleight of hand or sneaking and get a boon to the roll. You can also use it to make a melee attack against an enemy that is also in melee combat with another player. Your attack then counts as a sneak attack, which means it cannot be dodged or parried. You get a boon to the roll, and the number of dice rolled for the damage is increased by 1, i.e. 2d8 instead of a d8. This ability can only be used with subtle weapons.
Yeah, that's cool. Where the subtle comes in. So subtle may mean something else as well, but at this point, backstabbing is the only time that the subtle is mentioned, that you can only use it with subtle weaponry with the attack part.
Yep. So there's your halfling, and now, last but not least, is
Baston Bloodjaw,
which is a wolfkin. They are young and they are warrior. I seek out combat to defeat the most formidable adversary I can. Fleeing is cowardice.
Yes.
High strength, high agility. This is
high
your
con.
fighter.
A lot of hit points.
Con, all day. Hunting instinct and seasoned fighter, 2 of their abilities. They get a D6 for strength and a D4 for agility. So
and they are a spear wielder. They wield a lot of spears.
Yeah, I like that a lot, actually.
They have 14 movement. Wow, they have probably the highest movement so far, I think.
Yes, very high. They, again, inventory 9, only 2. So Steve's right. It's really interesting.
The thief is the only one who's maxed out there.
Yeah. Their memento is a blue bottle of perfume. I like that. See, that's interesting. Where did that come from? Interesting concept. They have a long spear, long and piercing. So we already spoke about long and what that can do.
Yep.
They also have a throwing spear, which ranges 36. Oh my gosh.
Remember, 36, that's in meters.
Yeah.
So in essence, you can divide that by 2 and get how many squares.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. You talk about like the blue bottle perfume as a memento. If you actually look at the appearance, scarred, bulging muscles, looks loyally at friends, menacingly at their foes, confident and arrogant, takes good care of his clothes, often wears fragrant perfumes.
See?
There you go.
Yep. And studded leather, armor rating 2, gives a bane to sneaking rolls.
Yep. So they're slightly better than leather armor, because leather armor didn't give you a bane, but it was only 1. So this is a 2-point reduction in damage. But now you're starting to see those banes come in where like this person is, even if they were good at sneaking, they're going to take those minuses. They're going to roll a 2 and take the worst.
Yep.
And here is the character. Wow.
So fucking dope. A really
artwork
cool
is
character.
good. I'm so impressed with the artwork.
Yeah, artwork is amazing. It inspires you to come up with your own characters. And I think that's the point of artwork. But hunting instinct, this comes from being a wolfkin. Your willpower is 3. You can use this ability to disengage. To designate a creature in sight or a creature you want to track the scent of as your prey. This counts as an action in combat. You can follow the scent of your prey for a full day, and you can spend further to continue to keep going.
You can gain a boon against attacking that prey. Yeah.
Seasoned fighter, 1 willpower. So this guy doesn't have a lot of willpower. 13, pretty high, but still not a lot. If you activate this ability at the start of a round of combat, you can keep your initiative card instead of drawing a new one. Activating this ability is done out of turn and does not count as an action.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
But it only costs 1 willpower. So even though they may not have a high enough, you only have 13 points, you're right. And they're probably not going to be tracking multiple things. So it may not, but you're going to use that seasoned fighter a lot, especially if they go really high, they go 1 or 2 or 3. I might keep that for a couple of turns before I decide to give that up.
Yep.
Or I could keep a high number, right? And then give it to somebody.
Oh,
we really need someone like you need to
switch with a monster. Yeah. Because you could switch with a monster and that's fine. And now the monster has to take that, 5 or 7. Yeah. And then you have that lower number. And
you can take the lower number from them and then take it out of the pool by keep using the points. So let me all right. Yeah, so I honestly I'm impressed with this. There's a couple of things where I'm like, the advantage, disadvantage, I wasn't sure in the beginning, but the way they've kind of integrated it, where it's like having players able to help you with, like they spend their action and they help you, they give you a boon. How the Bane works with conditions is awesome. Yeah, I'm on board with trying this out, and like I said, the artwork is just the inspired me to make characters and make an angry duck monster.
I'm super excited to see what's going on. Let me know. You know, this is a free quick start. You could get it.
So go to the Kickstarter link.
No, sorry, the quick start guide comes with a free adventure and all these characters and all the rules. You could grab it right now. It's completely free. You don't even have to back the Kickstarter. Again, they didn't pay us to do this. We did it because I think this system is really fun. I've been interested in this system because it is a Swedish tabletop role-playing game. It's a different kind of tabletop role-playing game and something I like. I actually like a lot of the stuff going on here. It's what I would do if I could rearrange a few different things in systems. Maybe Wizards of the Coast should just steal this for their D&D 1. I'm just saying. But with all of that said, let us know what you think. You know, shoot us messages if you are watching this on YouTube, because me and Steve are lazy and we didn't back up any videos and we're putting this live. Let us know in the comments down below if you're going to be picking this up. Check out their Kickstarter. It's fully funded, so you know you're going to be getting the stuff. It ends, I think, in September. 23 days to go, so the end of September. I'm super excited. I'm super jazzed to get stuff. I got the full kit and caboodle, $75 United States. So if you're out there in Australia, I'm sorry, I don't know what kind of didgeridoos they take. Yeah, I don't know the conversion rate between the United States dollar and the Australian dollar.
Yeah, if you go to Kickstarter, it should localize to your region. It'll say about X amount of dollars. I know I know if you just want to get just the physical book and the where'd it go? There it is. If you want to just get just the physical book and the PDF, it said it's approximately $38.
Yeah,
I mean, so that's not bad for a actual physical book. I don't know if they charge shipping or not, but actual physical, and then you're getting that, you're getting the PDF, and you're getting any of the stretch goals that occur during the campaign. But Jared went all in.
On the stretch goals.
Yeah, Jared went all in. He's gonna get a DM screen. He's gonna get all the cool stuff. Yeah, he got everything.
Yeah, they unlocked a ton of stretch goals already. They have dice, they have cards, initiative cards, they have all the stuff. So you're getting that even if for $35, which is a steal. Because other ones are a little higher priced and stuff like that. But with that being said, I want to say thank you very much to Steve for being here and hanging out with me. I want to say thank you very much to everyone out there listening and watching and tuning in. You're awesome. And also I want to say a huge happy birthday to one of our good friends, McBluff. Happy birthday to you, McBluff. Hope you have a wonderful day.
Birthday.